Durante el año escolar 2019 a 2020, vimos cómo nuestros estudiantes pasaron por tantos cambios que impactaron sus estudios. COVID-19 cambió muchas cosas y despojó a nuestros estudiantes de estar con sus compañeros de clases, maestros y amigos. ¿Cuáles son los nuevos cambios que han implementado los distritos para asegurar que nuestros estudiantes estén lo más protegidos contra el COVID-19?
So we are going to continue to wear masks this school year. And one difference is that outside, right now, we have the option for kids to wear masks. We're still going to be working on distancing kids and making sure that there's space between. There is also continuing to be contact tracing in place. So if there's symptoms or if there's a potential case, then we will work with our health staff to identify students that might be close contacts and contact families about that. We're still going to be doing the disinfection and cleaning and making sure that our airflows are clear and clean for our students. And number one, we want to welcome everybody back. One of the new things is that we'll have students 5 days a week if they choose that option. And so we're really excited to have them come back. But also know that students might be nervous and families might be nervous. And so we want to address any questions that they might have.
There haven't been a lot of changes. I think the fact that you've seen kind of cases in the community rise, they've kind of, the state, Governor Inslee have kind of reinforced the guidelines. So one of the things that we thought might occur over the summer was that masks might be relaxed a little. That's not the case. We will continue to have masks in the schools as we did last school year. One change would be that you can have students at recess without masks. I think the fact that folks will be masked again, both staff and students, volunteers, anybody that comes into the school will be masked is a something that people will need to be aware of. But most of the other guidelines that were in place last year will remain. And I guess I would say one other change is we had to do daily attestations this last school year. Parents would need to log in or students would need to log in and attest that there wasn't any sickness or illness. That's not a requirement this year either. But I will say that it's very important for families that have students that are experiencing any kind of symptoms, which the guidelines outline the symptoms, to make sure that if your child isn't feeling well, that they stay home until they get to the point where they feel better, and work with the building and work with your teacher on the instruction that needs to occur at home.
Ambos distritos requieren que todos los maestros, estudiantes, el personal estén vacunados contra el COVID-19.
The state is requiring all of our employees to be vaccinated at this time. The governor just recently announced that. So as a district, we are working through the process of identifying our employees who already have been vaccinated, and then working with the other ones who have not to either get vaccinated or to follow any of the exemption processes that the state has put in place. Right now, students are not required to be vaccinated. Of course, our younger students aren't able to get vaccinated yet, and our students 12 and older are, and that is a choice that families would be making right now, but it is not a requirement to come to school at this time.
Governor Inslee announced through his press conference that staff will be required to have been fully vaccinated in order to work in our schools. Now, the vaccine, depending upon which company you work with, it's either 1 dose or 2 doses, and then between the first dose and the second dose, it's either 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So there's a time frame that is allowed for individuals that are unvaccinated that work in the districts to become vaccinated. But by October 19th, if employees of the school district are not fully vaccinated, they will not be allowed to continue to work. For students, that vaccination requirement does not exist. So there is not a vaccine requirement for students, but we certainly are encouraging students over 12 to become vaccinated. And we are now requiring staff as of October 19th to be fully vaccinated to continue to work in the district.
¿Hubo estudiantes que se sintieron abandonados debido a la escuela en línea? Sus padres eran trabajadores esenciales o sus padres no los pudieron ayudar por tener barrera del idioma. ¿Cómo ayudarán los distritos a que esos estudiantes y sus padres se pongan al día?
We recognize that it was a very challenging year last year for students, families, staff. Our whole community had to respond in a lot of different ways to try to support one another. And so our biggest goal this year is really to welcome students and families back and try to understand what their needs are so that we can better meet those needs. And so we'll need your help to reach out and ask for help. And that can be through our schools, the teachers, the principals, but it also could be through our family community resources and other trusted members of our staff. Please feel willing to say, these are some things that we're concerned about for our students, or this is an area that we might need help. And so that we can try to meet those needs. One of the good things is a lot of students took advantage of summer opportunities more than we've ever had in the history of Vancouver schools. So we're grateful that kids and families trusted us over the summer to allow us to work with students. And we think that that will help for some students moving forward. But we also recognize that some kids have not been back to school for a long time. And so it can be very nerve-wracking and stressful. And so our staff are ready to welcome them. They also are a little nervous. So it's interesting that sometimes when everybody's nervous, maybe we just need to acknowledge that and recognize that we're kind of all in this together. And the more we can ask each other for help and be supportive of one another, the better off we are.
We're actually using the phrase unfinished learning rather than catch up because we want to honor some of the learning that was happening outside of here. But we began addressing unfinished learning with our students this summer. We provided 2 summer school sessions, one in June and one in August. And both of those were well attended by our students. And we got good feedback from both students and parents about their experiences in those summer sessions. But teachers will continue with this, obviously, when school begins, as they get to know their students social emotionally, but then also academically through, their assessments as the school begins, so that we know where students are in their learning to best support them moving forward. This school year, we will be providing staff with resources that they can use to help support students' social emotional learning needs. As well as their academic needs. So for example, our social emotional learning team created a playbook that teachers can use to be both pro and reactive to students' social emotional learning needs. We're also working on drafting our comprehensive counseling plan to help support that work, which is the state mandate this year. So that'll be another support that our teachers and students have. And then on the parent end, we actually hold and host a Spanish-speaking parent group through our Spanish-speaking liaison, Adriana Garcia. And she meets with them on a weekly basis. And parents can come to these and voice their concerns. And what that space is about is not just listening to the concerns, but then, co-designing the solutions with the parents and students who are actually experiencing those concerns. So working to do that. Another thing that we're doing is we're hiring a student engagement specialist to help us reconnect with students who we lost touch with last year, so that we can bring them back into the school environment with the supports that they need to be successful. And then lastly, we have added 4 individuals to our equity department, so equity advancement specialists, and they will be helping support schools with connecting with families on a deeper level, and as well as supporting other equity goals within the building. But that's one of the things that they'll be able to help schools do and teams, leadership teams do, is connect better with families, specifically the Spanish-speaking families, through organizations such as LULAC.
¿Los distritos escolares ofrecerán deportes el próximo año escolar?
Vancouver Public Schools will follow the Department of Health and Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, who governs our athletics. We'll follow those guidelines to offer the full menu of athletics for all of our students. Most people don't know this, but we run athletics all the way from elementary to middle to high school, and we have for years. At the high school level, Vancouver Public Schools works with the Greater St. Helens League, our Greater St. Helens League partner schools, to ensure students have the maximum amount of playing opportunities while keeping everybody safe. This commitment to safety includes not only the students, but coaches, referees, and our fans, which is mostly of our families. So with regards to regulations put in place, individual sports have been classified into low, medium, and high-risk sports. High-risk sports have more frequent and sustained close contact between participants, and thus would have more safety requirements in place. In addition to categorizing into low, medium, and high-risk activities, sports COVID protocols also are impacted by sports being either indoor or outdoor. So for instance, football is outdoor, whereas basketball would be inside a gymnasium. Examples of high-risk sports would include, like I referenced, football, wrestling, and basketball. Depending on whether the sport is indoor or outdoor, students, coaches, fans, and referees would be subject to continuing mask and social distancing requirements. For instance, football players would not be required to wear a mask while playing on the field since it's outside, but would be required to wear masks in closed door meetings and in the weight room, where there's, generally speaking, pretty poor ventilation. So we are currently working to not only communicate these expectations and these requirements out to our communities and our families at the district level, but working directly with our communities, with our athletic directors and our coaches.
Yeah, we will. We kind of midway through the year last year added sports back, and there were pretty strict regulations on masking and testing for particular sports. This year, we're starting from the beginning of the school year with the schedule as we typically would any year. I think that the fall sports have already started here within the last few days. The restrictions on masking are a little less severe. It's not mandatory masking at all times. Outdoor sports, masking is not required. They've identified certain indoor sports as high contact, like basketball and wrestling. There's testing requirements around some of those sports, but our students should see more of a return to kind of a normal situation with respect to sports this year. So we're real excited about having the opportunity. And I would say one of the things that we're doing this year, and we had meant to start last year, but everything got delayed, was our middle schools are adding soccer this school year. So we've never had soccer at the middle school. We're real excited to offer that to our students, increase participation. We 100% believe that students connected to the school makes for more successful students, and soccer is a great way to make that happen. So we're real excited about that this school year.
¿Cuáles serán las reglas y regulaciones a seguir para tener a los estudiantes de kinder y primaria saludables?
So I'm Christy Lindholm. I'm also an executive director in schools and learning. So I'm really excited to be on the team, and I'm really happy we get to welcome back our children to school, especially our kindergarten kids who, for many, this is their first time that they have been in school at all. So we're excited to have them and get them started with us. And in order to focus on keeping them healthy and safe and excited to be in school, and their families feeling comfortable and secure with us to send us their children, we really focus on teaching kids how and why to be safe at school. So the how is wearing your mask, keeping your distance, and we're trying to do 6 feet as much as we can, but sometimes we'll be doing 3 feet depending on the classroom environment or where the kids are during the day. We teach children to keep their materials separate from other kids and don't share, which is hard for kids because kids like to share. Keep their desks clean. So teachers do a lot of basic reinforcement. We do that any year in school, like how to be in school, how to line up, where to go, how to do things. But this year, the focus will be on also how do we keep ourselves and our friends safe from COVID. So it's a lot of instruction and practice so that kids can feel good about being in school. Honestly, we've seen that kids don't have too many problems following these rules and keeping their masks on, they forget that they have them on. I think it's a lot harder for us adults.
The guidelines that we follow really are going to be the same guidelines. I've already previously mentioned masks. I mentioned the social distancing. We have hand washing stations throughout the school, so we're always going to have our students washing their hands throughout the day as often as we possibly can. As a district, there's some ventilation requirements in terms of the external air coming into the building. So we've worked with our HVAC systems to make sure that we're getting the proper airflow. And of course, this isn't just elementary and kindergarten, this is K-12. And we've got cleaning protocols that we follow within the district as well. So, we were very successful last school year in a hybrid setting, not having, certainly there were cases in the community, but there weren't cases that were spread within our buildings following the protocols and the guidelines from the Department of Health and from Governor Inslee. So, we've had good success with our students being great at following the guidelines, with our staff at implementing the guidelines. So we're comfortable with those protocols that we have in place that will continue to have success this year. And I can't say it enough how excited we are to have kids come back full time this year. And I know that our students and our staff are really excited to have this happen as well.
Estamos mirando que los casos de la nueva variante Delta de COVID-19 está afectando a personas más jóvenes que son saludables. ¿Cómo se están preparando los dos distritos escolares para combatir este nuevo variante COVID?
We are concerned about the new Delta variant. I think anyone that's paying attention to the media is seeing that cases are going up again this summer, which is really unfortunate because we were going in the good direction at the end of the school year, and now we're having to deal with this again. We are confident in working with public health that our strategies are effective. And so wearing our masks, keeping distance, hand washing, cleaning, all those things are really, really important. And last year when we did those, we had very minimal transmissions at school. We do have cases at school because kids are exposed outside of school, or as you all know, that it happens in our community. So it's not that we don't have cases, but we're not seeing transmissions happening in our school. We're going to continue to monitor what happens when we bring students back and continue to work with public health. We're very fortunate that we have great partners there, and we communicate with them weekly, and they monitor our hospitals, they monitor the cases. They make sure that they're paying attention to all of the community and inform us about what we should and should not be doing to support our students and families. So we're optimistic, but we're not naive to see that these rates are going up, and we need to pay attention to that, and we need to support students and staff to follow all the mitigation strategies in the school setting.
I think that we will continue to be vigilant with following the guidelines from the state. Requiring vaccinations for staff are a response to the Delta variant. That I think there were a lot of individuals that believed over the summer the masking was going to be relaxed, but with increased cases, the state also recently implemented or re-implemented a mask requirement in all indoor public spaces. So where we spent so much time wearing masks in grocery stores and in restaurants and in malls and places like that in the last 18 months, where Governor Inslee has reinstituted that for the state of Washington. So I think it's not just a school issue, it's a community issue, and encouraging all of our as you mentioned, the students, our parents, our just our families, and the community at large following these guidelines to help minimize the spread throughout.
¿Habrá oportunidades como clubs después de la escuela para los estudiantes que quieren participar? Si la respuesta es sí, ¿cuáles serán las reglas a seguir durante este nuevo año escolar?
Hola, soy Lucy Estrada Guzmán, trabajo aquí en el Distrito Escolar, encargada de el programa de dual lenguaje o bilingüe y encargada de las coordinadoras del distrito también. La pregunta es si nuestros hijos van a tener la oportunidad de tener actividades después de las clases. Y claro que sí, nosotros aquí en el distrito nos importa que los niños tengan actividades y que sean parte de su comunidad dentro y de fuera de la escuela. Vamos a seguir todas las medidas que hemos hablado previamente, como el uso de cubrebocas y el distanciamiento físico, lavando las manos, etc. Si gustan saber más de las oportunidades de actividades después de la escuela, por favor, contacten su escuela. Ellos tienen la información sobre cómo se pueden inscribir y qué actividades tienen después de sus clases. Gracias.
We will offer after-school clubs, and we talked earlier about after-school sports. So what we will see is just an extension of the guidelines that would apply to the after-school clubs and any kind of activity that is occurring. Our schools all have real detailed guidelines. They're working with folks like Clarissa and Veronica on supporting the buildings, making sure they've got everything they need to work with our families. So certainly masks would still be a requirement, social distancing when reasonable, and trying to keep at least 3 feet apart. So we'll just continue to follow the guidelines, but we need to serve our students. Our students need to be in school. Our students need to have the activities and the access that they've had for so long. And now we clearly see that we took for granted a little bit when it got taken away from us in the last 18 months. So we want school to be as normal as it possibly can be. And that means, yes, we do have access to clubs. Yes, we do have access to music. Yes, we do have access to sports. We'll follow the guidelines, but we want to make sure that our students have the opportunities to do all of these things.
Para los estudiantes y padres que prefieren la escuela en línea, ¿ofrecen los distritos escolares esa opción?
Yeah, hello, my name is Bill Oman. I'm an executive director for schools and learning, and I have the privilege of supporting the Hudson's Bay school community and all of the elementary middle schools that feed into Hudson's Bay. And the answer is absolutely yes, we will, and we do. The option is run through the Vancouver Virtual Learning Academy, or VVLA. We have sent out a survey to all of our families explaining the precautions that would be in place that Dr. Snell previously has mentioned, and asked parents to let us know if their students would be returning to their regular school or if they would prefer an online option. We had about a 58% response rate from those initial surveys that went out, and out of those responses, about 5% selected that remote option through VVLA. Since that time, we have had building staff calling, emailing, reaching out to families that we have not heard from, just to make sure that they do get an option to choose either online or their neighborhood school.
We will offer the option. The option in the state of Washington, very late in the year, the state came out with some guidelines providing kind of you've got in-person, we've got alternative learning education, which is a different model that allows for online and remote instruction. They've created kind of a middle option, but the middle option came so late, we really didn't have the time to implement that in the short term. So our option for students that choose remote is through, in elementary grades K through 8, we have a Home Choice Academy. That's an alternative learning program. Kids can still connect with their schools for activities and things that happen at their schools, but the instruction would be through Home Choice Academy. And in high school, we have a Legacy High School, a similar program that would allow the same. So remote instruction through the online school with Legacy High School. But if you are a student that attends Mountain View or Heritage or Gila or Union, and you're choosing to remain remote, you still have the opportunity to participate in activities and sports at your school. You just need to connect with that school to make that happen.
¿Dónde podemos encontrar toda esta información? ¿Hay páginas de Facebook o un website donde entrar para más información?
So there is a lot of information information normally in coming back to school. And given the pandemic, it's even more difficult to try to get information and navigate all these decisions that you have as families. One thing to know is that we're going to continue to try to communicate often with you. You should have gotten an email yesterday welcoming you back to the school year with information about buses and information about anything and everything related to the start of the school year. That's coming out from the district, or came out from the district. And then your school principals and teachers are going to start connecting with you. And some of you are maybe even having family nights already happening this week. And so those are another great place to get information. All the information is on our website, and it's translated in multiple languages. I would just really encourage people, though, if you feel like you need help, the biggest thing that you can do for us is ask for help. I mean, that is the way that you can help us most. Number one, if you have those questions, it probably means that other people have those questions and aren't able to find the information either. And we need to do a better job of communicating it. And so you're actually helping others when you ask these questions. And so we're grateful for you with that. The other thing about this is you are the expert on your students. You know what's happened to them over the last couple of years. You know what makes them happy. You know how they learn best. And so we really want to partner with you. Always we do, but especially coming out of last year, to understand what you think your students' needs. And our teachers are ready and willing to have those conversations with you. So, look to the website for some resources in general, and then ask specific questions. And even if you don't know who to ask someone, and then it's our responsibility to try to find who we can get the answer for you. We're really excited to have you back this school year. We're really excited and grateful that you would send your kids to us and trust us with them. We're gonna have a great school year. It is gonna be a school year, though, that probably changes a little bit here and there. We've all realized that the world kind of is unpredictable sometimes. And so we will need that communication as we can continue to update you on what's going on and how we're serving your students.
Yeah, we do have sites that we will provide and allow for anyone that's participating in this conversation to be able to click on links and go to the home choice page, learn who they need to connect with, and the same thing for Legacy High School. We want to make sure that parents and students, if there's, excuse me, concerns about returning to school, we provide options. We want all our students to be engaged and re-engage, either through online learning or when they come back in person. That's fantastic. We just want to stay connected with everyone.
¿Cómo pueden ayudar LULAC y Clark County Leadership Youth Conference a los distritos para que los padres y estudiantes de habla hispana se enteren de la información que los distritos están compartiendo?
Bueno, en nuestra escuela y en nuestro distrito escolar siempre queremos apoyar a la juventud y queremos apoyar la juventud en LULAC y también para seguir trabajando juntos como equipo. Una manera muy buena sería que podrían juntarse y platicar con su coordinador de la escuela para ayudar y para empezar trabajando juntos como equipo para nuestra comunidad.
Primeramente, gracias a todas las familias que nos están escuchando hoy. A mí me encantaría que nos inviten ustedes a cualquier evento que tengan para escuchar sus voces, pero a la misma vez darles información. Nos gustaría saber quién es un contacto que podemos tener para tener una relación donde nosotros podamos darles información directamente, pero también saber de lo que está pasando en la comunidad. Aquí en Evergreen es una organización bastante nueva para mí, pero sé que la estoy conociendo y yo también los puedo ayudar y servirles en cualquier capacidad que pueda. Algunos ejemplos de información que podamos trabajar juntos por medio de mis servicios sería, por ejemplo, el programa dual que tenemos donde los estudiantes aprenden en ambos idiomas, inglés y el español. Y ahorita tenemos posiciones en este programa y me encantaría darles información acerca de los esfuerzos que tenemos para traer personas bilingües que nos puedan ayudar aquí en Evergreen en diferentes capacidades, pero a la misma vez tenemos el programa y nos encantaría darles y proveerles información para si esta es una opción para sus estudiantes. Sabemos que los programas duales sirven en diferentes maneras y son uno de los mejores programas para ayudar académicamente, mantener nuestro idioma tan bello que tenemos y la cultura. Aquí, como ustedes conocen, Adriana García, ella es alguien bastante importante para nuestra comunidad porque nos ayuda aquí en Evergreen proveer información también. Y tenemos un número de contacto que viene siendo el 360-604-4029.